Are you an alcoholic? Well, you might be after you watch this video. Do you think about it when nothing else is going on? Do you crave it at random times? If you have this kind of relationship with alcohol, you might be close to being an alcoholic. But we also need to think about the word alcoholic and be more open to what that might mean. To be an alcoholic, you don't really have to drink a lot when you do drink. It doesn't mean that you binge a lot of alcohol in one sitting or at one time necessarily. It also doesn't mean that you drink alcohol all the time or every day or super frequently. Alcoholism is about the relationship between you and alcohol. If you think about it a lot, if you crave it when it's not around, then you might be an alcoholic. Hi, welcome back to Thinking and Being. If you like what you see in this video today, please like and subscribe. I really appreciate it. In this channel, we're going to talk about a lot. We're going to talk about physics, psychology, consciousness, systems thinking, and we're also going to talk about all the silly patterns that we see in the world and reflect on those things that we observe and see. Today, I'm going to talk about why you might be an alcoholic. I'm going to give you 5 observations that I had from doing dry January in my own way. And then I'm also going to give you 5 new habits that I was able to form as a result of cutting back on alcohol for 1 month. So why am I doing this? Why did I try to do dry January when I've never done it before? The interesting thing is I grew up around not a lot of alcohol. Thankfully, my father never really drank. And when he did, it was a special treat. And he didn't even really like alcohol himself. He allowed me to try it once when I was young, and I didn't like it. And I thought, wow, beer is gross, like any normal person when they start drinking beer. But then later in life, I went to school. I went to a university in Pennsylvania called Pennsylvania State University, or Penn State, which is one of the biggest party schools in the country. And that is where I learned, quote unquote, among other things, I learned about how to drink and what to drink.
Thanks. I needed that.
Drinking became a part of my life as a student. However, even though over a 4-year span, that might have been the most I ever drank in my life, hard to say really, but even though I drank a lot, when I wasn't drinking, maybe during the week or when I was doing homework on a weekday, I never ever craved alcohol, ever. So my relationship with alcohol, even though I drank a lot when it was time to party on all weekends, and I was very disciplined about it, and sometimes even like if I drank too much on a Friday, I would not drink on a Saturday because I just drank too much. But that was a work hard, play hard environment for me as a young college student. But at the end of the day, during the week and at times I was away from alcohol, I never thought about it, which made me think about today. So the question is, what changed? For me today, why I wanted to experiment with cutting back dramatically on alcohol for just a few weeks, can't be that hard, right? I wanted to see what would change as a result of changes in my behavior and my relationship with alcohol potentially. The problem is, over the last few years, slowly but surely, and probably not with much help from COVID, I developed a relationship with alcohol that was probably unhealthy. And like I said in the very beginning of the video, it wasn't that I drank every day necessarily. And it wasn't that when I did drink, I drank a lot. So I never had the problem of like starting to drink and not being able to stop, which a lot of alcoholics do. Alcoholism is more than that. And we should be accepting of the broadening of the term alcoholism, because alcoholism is really about anything where you have some sort of uncontrollable or difficult to control relationship with alcohol, just like any addiction. If you're thinking about something, if you're craving something, if you need it more often than other things, then you might have an unhealthy relationship with whatever that thing is. And if you find it controlling other parts of your life, you also might have an unhealthy relationship with something. Now, again, alcohol was not controlling other parts of my life. And actually, alcohol was not affecting negatively any part of my life. But what I did notice is that when I wasn't drinking alcohol, I was thinking about alcohol. When I wasn't having alcohol, I was craving alcohol. And when I was bored and didn't have much to do, I would do things just for the purposes of finding and drinking alcohol, which is also not good, in my opinion. So I saw these thoughts patterns start to emerge, and I said, well, that's probably not a good thing. And during COVID, these things developed. There was just more time to drink, and there was a lot of alone time, and probably a little bit of boredom contributed to filling that bored space or that blank space with alcohol, which in a lot of ways was good, but now today, as it developed in some kind of new relationship, which could be bad in the future if I kept up these behaviors. So I would drink alcohol when I was bored. I would crave alcohol. I would even travel to places where they had alcohol, like a winery or a brewery, and build my schedule for the day or my events for the day or my activities for the day around alcohol. Also, what changed is, things coming out in the news that we already knew already, that the Surgeon General put out a notice that, alcohol is a direct link to cancer and causes cancer. This is something we knew, and pretty soon we'll probably start seeing labels on all alcohol products, beers, bottles, cases, cardboard, whatever. You'll see those alcohol causes cancer just like you see it on cigarettes and other things. And maybe alcohol doesn't go the way of the cigarette, but we can't ignore these things. I have some thoughts about whether people who drink alcohol have other issues medically that are contributing to their cancer that may not just be the alcohol, because people who do drink a lot of alcohol tend to have other issues as well. But I'm sure that there's some solid science behind the fact that alcohol does cause cancer. So that's something that changed as well. And so that's those elements, all those elements together made me think that maybe I should start thinking about my relationship with alcohol and kind of test some things with it. Now, before I continue on and say alcohol is a horrible thing, before we rag on alcohol too much, I can say that I'm not ready personally to give up alcohol forever. A lot of people online are talking about giving it up forever and going cold turkey. I've done cold turkey with other things like tobacco in my life many, many years ago, multiple decades ago, and that was fine. I'm not ready to give up alcohol. Let me just say a few good words about alcohol because I want to be as objective as I can. During COVID, when I developed some habits around alcohol that are probably unhealthy in terms of that craving and that constant, you know, attention to alcohol, I really felt like alcohol helped me calm down. I was very chill. So that was one of the good benefits of alcohol. Instead of being high strung, worrying about to do lists and worrying about being productive, alcohol allowed me to calm down. And I think I took that for granted a little bit. So I do think that there's, some benefit to alcohol in keeping you calm. So I love wine. I have the Vivino app and I keep track of all the different types of wine I drink. I love red wine. I love going to a winery and just relaxing on a weekend afternoon in a special place in the United States or in the world and just not doing anything but sipping a glass of wine. That is an amazing experience. Without alcohol, I would not have that experience. And so I'm not ready to give that up yet, just not yet. Also, I love beer. I have the Untapped app, and I'll put a link to these below. I'm not trying to encourage you to drink, but if you can be disciplined about it, I'll put a link to these apps below where you can track and appreciate and savor, more importantly, your wine and beer drinking experiences. There's apps where you can do that. There's also an app that I used during the dry January, which is called Try Dry. I'm going to put a link to that in the description below as well. That's where I was able to track my days, log what I drank, really see how much I was drinking, not just the days I was drinking, but how many units I was drinking. And that was pretty eye opening for me as well. I like beer. I like going to breweries and just trying new beers. I'm kind of a light beer kind of guy. I'm a white person, so I like IPAs. I know IPAs are starting to get out of style. India Pale Ales is what they stand for. They can be bitter and hoppy, and maybe too bitter and hoppy.
Hey, give me one of those famous giant beers I heard so much about.
Something wrong, Yank?
No, it's pretty big, I guess.
But beers are, again, a great tasting experience. When I went to college and I first tasted a beer, it tasted horrible. It's definitely an acquired taste. But as you get more experience drinking beer, man, a lot of them have a lot of great, refreshing tastes. And it's just great to sit at a brewery with some friends and enjoy the different tastes that you get from different beers. I even like whiskey. So I even got into whiskey for a while during COVID. So I learned about what some of the best mass market whiskeys are. I do have some favorites there as well, but I've decided to cut those out for the most part just because of the high alcohol content, and really save those for when I'm going out in special occasions and that sort of thing. But I still love whiskey. So I love beer, I love wine, I love whiskey. I'm just not ready to give it all up. There's a lot of good things about them, but again, if it's alcohol and it's potentially cancer causing, and I have an unhealthy relationship with it, well, then something needs to change. My goal with Dry January was really just to cut back. I wasn't trying to cut it out completely. So I wasn't trying to push myself to be perfect in that regard. And so there were a couple days that I did drink.
You son of a bitch. You no good damn.
On days where I was watching football, it was really hard not to drink. So there are 2 days where I was watching football that I drank some beer. And interestingly enough, for me, I am a Philadelphia Eagles fan. As you can see, go Birds.
Right? I know, go birds. Get your hand off my knee.
Go Birds.
Go birds. Go birds.
So I feel like that was worth it. They won the Super Bowl this year. And so that's amazing. I can sleep well at night, and you won't hear Eagles fans complain for another few months, at least until the fall when they lose one game. So that's goodness. So I drank during football. I also drank a couple times with peers who were having some people needed to talk, or they were having a social event, or even some people were there going through some challenges. And so I elected not to forego drinking in those support social environments. So at the end of the day, there were 5 or 6 days where I did drink in January. And you're going to say, okay, that's not a dry January. But I understand. I also didn't want to go cold turkey the whole month and not drink and then rubber band, snap back, and drink a ton when I hit February. I didn't want that to happen either. So I wanted to drink a little bit during the month. So at the end of the day, I cut back a lot in order to form new habits, which I think is more feasible than cutting out cold and then run the risk of drinking too much again the next month or binging the next month. The YouTube content creator that I want to promote today goes by the name of Gooby and Doobie. This individual used to be a spine and brain surgeon, a very highly accomplished doctor who left the field last year and made a really impactful, popular video about it on YouTube last year. And I'm inspired by his message about really thinking about what matters in life. He was a partial inspiration for me starting this channel. So I want to shout him out. He has a lot of good content. He talks about how he left the medical field because they felt they were treating symptoms and not curing disease. And so I really encourage you. I'll put a link to his channel in the description below. And I'll also put one of his videos, that one video that he talks about his experience with leaving the medical field. But he has a natural way of talking, a natural way of sucking you in and making you think things maybe you haven't thought before, which is great. So check it out. Much appreciated. So the observed benefits that I saw was the first was sleep. I had deeper sleep And when you're in deep sleep, that is repair sleep. Sleep is a magical thing that makes you repair all of your mental, physical, maybe even spiritual health issues that you might be having. Deep sleep is an amazing thing, and you get just a little bit of it per night. If you drink alcohol, it cuts back on the deep sleep and that repair sleep. So I got more of that. I felt great in that regard. Also, my sleep scores on from my watch for overall sleep and readiness for training readiness, were quite a bit higher than they were when I usually drank during the month, say in the past months. So those scores were higher. As far as energy goes, I had more energy to lift weights. Usually with fitness stuff, I tend towards the cardio stuff, but I had more of a desire to do weightlifting, which is really important for bone density, bone health, muscle mass, and the ratio of mass to bone, and which is a direct indicator of health. So even especially when you're older individual like myself, my age is classified. We're not going to talk about that. And I felt a desire to be more productive. So to and I there was a few days where I was just powering through to-do lists and like piling on other things and getting more things done. I think there is a happy medium between being chill, which I was able to when I drank, especially as I developed new habits around and relationship with alcohol during COVID. I felt more chill. I felt more relaxed. There's definitely a happy medium between being chill and relaxed and then being productive, but overly productive and obsessing about to-do lists. I think there's a happy medium in there. And so that's why I think that cutting back on drinking is important to have a balance of energy and also a balance of relaxation. Then the third area I saw a difference is nutrition and eating. I definitely wanted to snack more, and I think that's a function of alcohol being taken away and me wanting to replace it with something else. But at the end of the day, up to now, before dry January, I did not snack at all. I don't eat between meals. I just don't have any desire to do so. But when I cut back on alcohol a lot, apparently I feel like snacking a lot. Interesting development and worth noting. Also, I would crave something to replace alcohol. And in my case, I replaced alcohol also with coffee. So I would crave coffee. Normally, prior to dry January, I would drink 1 cup of coffee in the morning and I would be fine for most of the day. But when I was doing dry January, I was having a second and third cup of coffee during the day.
I'll just have a cup of coffee.
Bear it is.
No, I said coffee.
Beer.
Coffee.
B. Ear.
C-O.
As far as weight goes, I didn't experience a ton of weight loss partially because of the snacking aspect. I did lose 7 or 8 pounds, but I would not call that significant. I really just call that a function of less calories overall because, alcohol is calories, it's carbs, it's absorbed as sugar and stays with your body and usually becomes extra weight. So I dropped a few pounds as I expected I would, and by now I probably gained them back to some extent. But so a little bit of weight loss, but not significant. In the other area, as far as drinking, but I did drink one day fairly heavily in January,
You what?
and that was right around the midpoint towards the end of the month, and I did recover easier than normally I would. So I was recovered fairly quickly. So in a band of time where I drank a lot less, and then I had a lot to drink one day, I was able to recover quickly. I noticed. So I was less affected. Whereas if I had been drinking frequently up to that day and had a lot to drink that day, I would have recovered more slowly. So that's something I noticed. Other things I noticed about drinking when I did drink during January, even though it was rare, I learned to savor what I was drinking and I actually had less desire to drink a lot of drinks in one sitting. So I usually had one or two. I did not have the desire to have, two or three or four or more. So that was an interesting development. I noticed myself not really wanting to have more in one sitting. And then the other thing about drinking in January, I would sometimes be social and not drink. And so I would force myself to have non-alcoholic beer and non-alcoholic cocktails while staring at other people drinking, so I could really work on that discipline aspect of cutting back on alcohol. So I did that a few times as well, and actually I powered through that just fine. So let me talk about the 5 new habits that I achieved, I think. And I think this was really what I was going after in dry January. So the first thing is I have less drinks when I do drink, which is a really good thing. You want to keep it to 1 or 2 drinks when you do drink. And if you can do that, that's amazing, I think. The next habit that I've noticed is that I don't want to just get up and go out the door just for the purposes of drinking. I don't want to go to places just to drink. I have to have a better reason to go somewhere. So I've noticed that I've not had that desire. Like if I have a weekend or a day where I'm not, nothing's going on, I'm not filling it with something where I'm just going somewhere just to drink, like a brewery or a winery, whereas I would have done that in the fall. So that's something I noticed, and I'm going to try to keep that going. Third area, which I think is most important for me, is that I really wanted to spend most of my week not drinking. So my new habit is I don't drink from Monday through Thursday. No drinking at all. And it's just a break. It's a great break, and I can focus on other things. I can focus on other things like sparkling water. Which brings me to this video's product placement where I don't get paid to advertise, but I'm going to do it anyway for good karma and because I think this is a really good product. And hopefully in the future, when the channel grows, I'll be able to actually have products that I can advertise and promote. But this video's product is Liquid Death Sparkling Water, and they make waters, they make iced teas, and now they make sodas. The waters and iced teas come in a larger can, and then the sodas, such as cola, this one's a root beer, and they also have a Dr. Pepper type flavor, are all really good, and I recommend them all. My favorite of all the liquid deaths is the Dead Billionaire iced tea. It's a iced tea lemonade flavor, so I highly recommend that. But liquid death root beer instead of real beer is a great option if it's a Monday through Thursday and you want to cut back and you don't want to drink. Um, tastes amazing, so good, and I can drink I can drink many of these and not feel guilty about it because this soda is extremely healthy. It only has 10 calories, and the sweetener that it uses is agave and stevia. So unlike a Coca-Cola or a Pepsi where it's 170 calories per can, this is 10 calories per can. And the taste is just as good. So I need to drink 17 of these to equal 1 Coke or Pepsi. But I really love Liquid Death and I can't recommend it enough. And everyone knows a Diet Coke drinker. I understand Diet Coke tastes so good. It has aspartame, which is really not good for you. And that, just like alcohol, is a carcinogen, causes cancer. So I would not recommend drinking Diet Coke. But I understand everyone knows a Diet Coke person.
How many do you drink a day, Diet Cokes?
Not as many as Daddy Trump. My God, I thought I could drink them, but man, he can drink.
So that's why I recommend Liquid Death as a great replacement for something like Diet Coke or Pepsi or whatever you happen to be drinking. Okay, the fourth habit that I recognized was that I don't have a desire to drink alcohol alone. It's something I tried to do as a resolution over the past few years is to no drinking alone. So I think I've achieved that, and not drinking during the week has helped that as well. But another thing that helps is not having alcohol in your home or where you live, to force yourself to leave to go get alcohol. That helps you go through the steps and decisions. Do I really want this? Do I really want this? I would suggest the same thing with things like ice cream. If you find yourself eating ice cream all the time, don't hold it in your house. Make yourself get in the car, walk outside, get in the car, drive to the place, shell out more money than you would have, and go through all those steps to make sure you really want that. But so I don't drink alone anymore, and so far so good. I'll report back if that changes. Okay, the fifth area where I noticed the new habit was that I just had more motivation to achieve stuff. So there were more days where I felt the energy to get things done. And again, it wasn't like I felt obsessed or I felt like anxious that I had to do things. I just had more energy and more motivation and just more insight into doing more things. And so I would finish my to-do list and I would have energy to do other things that really felt productive on top of my finished to-do list. So I had a couple days like that, which I hadn't experienced in a while, and it felt good. So more motivation and energy to get things done. I do want to thank one individual friend that helped push me to do Try Dry. So I really appreciate that. And you know who you are, so I really appreciate you pushing me to think about my relationship and maybe reframe my relationship with alcohol for this month and this year and for hopefully the years to come. So thank you. Okay, well, I hope this video was interesting for you. I covered why I came to think I needed to do a dry January and cut back severely on my alcohol intake. I talked about my relationship with alcohol leading up to this past January. I talked about a few things that I observed as a result of doing and experiencing dry January that I thought were interesting. And then I talked about 5 new habits that I was able to attain as a result of doing dry January. And I hope that those habits stick with me. I think it was really as a result of cutting back on alcohol during the month of January. Hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for sticking it out with me and watching. There'll be more to come in the future. A lot of interesting topics coming up. But in the meantime, please keep thinking and being, and do not go gentle into that good night.